Zionists sometimes try to be. Yeah, you have. If you lean back, you're out of the Instagram frame.
Okay, so I'll try to lean in. Okay. Welcome everybody. We're here on Elik's Instagram channel and
Hello, everyone.
And on my YouTube channel. We have Dan with us tonight. And let me just explain how this came to be. We were here talking about all kinds of stuff. And we were mainly talking about how Elik and Dan both had some discussions / arguments with Zionists on Facebook lately in the last few days. And we had a lot to say about it. And then at some point we were like, oh, this would be very interesting for our audience to hear. We want to have this discussion in a public platform. So we decided we would just go live and continue this discussion, redo the part of this discussion that we already did, and continue it. So Dan, Elik, do you want to tell about what you did in the last few days, and just tell us what happened?
Well, generally, I write on Facebook in Hebrew. And I've managed to create a kind of a bubble of either anti-Zionists or left liberals. But then every now and then I do encounter Zionists. And sometimes it's like we have relationships. Like it's the same people. They stay on my feed and we go back and forth, but not a lot. And then recently I've written something. I'm a history student and I bring things that I find from history and things that most Zionists don't know. Actually, a lot of anti-Zionists don't know either. And I bring these things.
I always learn new stuff. From,
yes, it's always educational.
It's, yeah.
But one time someone commented on something.
Down is completely out.
1 second. We'll solve all the technical issues. Yes.
So at one point someone commented on a post of mine that attracted a lot of attention because it is a very important, interesting moment in Zionist history, and very shocking for Zionists to see. By the way, it's about 1948. It's actually the first day of 1948, very symbolically. And the day before, Haganah forces, Zionist militia forces, commit a massacre. And the day after that, there is a meeting of all the elites of the security and political apparatus, the Zionist apparatus, and they talk about how should we deal with the Palestinians in this war that is starting to pick up speed. And long story short, the consensus at the end is we're gonna when we decide to inflict violence on this or other village, we will not differentiate between women and children. For whatever reasons, they made their calculations and they said, yes, that's how we're going to go. And it's a really haunting quote of David Ben-Gurion, the founding father of the state of Israel, concluding that meeting in his diary that day. He said, to hit without mercy, to strike without mercy, women and children included.
He says it explicitly.
He summarizes the meeting. You can tell if you read the protocol of the meeting and then you read what he wrote in the diary, you realize, oh, he's just taking notes. He's like, this is what we talked about today. So he's not saying this in his own voice, but if you know something about Ben-Gurion and the circumstances, he was not in disagreement with this. There was a consensus about this in the meeting. We could make a whole episode just about that meeting. It's fascinating. No one knows about it. It's documented. I have the protocols. No one knows about it. It's fascinating to see how they justify it and how sometimes they think maybe not. It's fascinating. So I've written a post about that. It attracted a lot of attention. Someone wrote me, wow, please write this. Please bring this post to my Facebook group. That is like a history, people who like history and like to talk about history. And it's just a pretty much a Zionist group. Just because it's not leftist, it's not radical or anything like that. Just people who are Hebrew speakers and are interested in history, mostly Zionists, naturally. So I said, wow, really? Okay, you want this in your group? Okay. put it in the group. There's rules about how you make your contribution to the group. You need to bring sources. You need to keep your language like respectful. And then if you do that, everything's okay. I said, okay, you sure you guys want this? I can deal with these rules. I don't think you can deal with these rules. But okay, let's try. So I'm just bringing facts and showing the sources. And that's where I started getting attention from Zionists more than ever. And they annoyed me so much with their mostly trying to insult my professionalisms, trying to say, well, these are bad sources. People who know nothing
like they
about
did
history.
to Ilan Pappé when he exposed the crimes of Zionism.
So so because of that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring you. Or they said, okay, it's just one story. It doesn't. I said, okay, I'm gonna come back to this group every now and then when I have something juicy, and I did that recently, and boom, I get a lot of responses from Zionists, and they start following me and commenting to my posts, not in the group, just generally. And the last few days, it's always been like that for the past year at least, but like really intensive arguments with Zionists. And so that was the mood that we were in, talking about why do we do this, Evan? How do you do this?
Yes.
How do you talk with Zionists? Does it make any sense?
But I want to say that like the trigger, the direct trigger for you, I think, was that one of your posts, a very powerful post, I think, about what is going on in Gaza now and the history of Zionism in general, and the crimes of Zionism against Palestinians, was shared by a Palestinian-Israeli reporter, journalist for Haaretz newspaper. Her name is Hanin Majadla, and she shared your post, and she has a lot of followers, a lot of Israeli Jewish followers as well on Facebook, who comment on her posts in a very condescending and disgusting manner, in my opinion. And they all came to your post and commented in a very condescending and disgusting manner, in my opinion. And you had a lot of back and forth with them, right?
Yeah.
And Elik, you had a similar experience,
Yeah.
right? You want to tell about your experience as well?
Yeah. What happened to me a bit that when I came, I was in this trip and in the US, and I came here and I had the feeling, okay, I'm here. I want to give it a chance to speak more in Hebrew. And it's generally something that it was haunting me, that I'm only speaking in English. And, I had this inner voice in my head that you're only speaking to the outside. You're not doing the work, because the work is to try to speak to, like you take the Plato cave allegory. It's like you went out, you discovered the reality, which is actually not like Plato. It's not light. It's actually death and horror. But this is the reality you discover, and then you come back and you have to try to speak to your people. This is your mission, right?
Even if they might kill you, because that's what happens in the allegory.
Really? I didn't know that.
Because it's about Socrates, his teacher, who was executed. I should say murdered. He was murdered.
He was murdered.
Yeah. That's euphemism. Yeah.
Officially murdered.
He was
It's part
murdered.
of our discussion.
Yeah, we might talk about that as well.
Yes.
So in the allegory, the person comes back to the caves and they don't understand him, and they think he's so weird, and they're so shocked.
Yeah.
I think they kill him. That's
Oh wow! I need to check it out. But anyway, I was kind of determined, and I, like you, my Facebook is more Hebrew, my Instagram is more English. That's how I kind of divided it. Not intentionally, but that's how it came.
It happened
That's
for me
the
as well. I
platform.
don't know why.
That's the platform, really.
Yeah, and I have the same people responding to me every time I write him. Not exactly the same, but a lot of people. And for me, it's a bit different than you, because it's people I know personally, friends sometimes, people from music that I used to cooperate with. And we had a lot of discussions, and I wrote a post that was very emotional, how I feel that I'm not an Israeli anymore, because the moment you say certain stuff, you kind of step out the collective Israeli consciousness, and there's no turning back. And one of the terms you use is genocide, and you really can see, like, the people who agree to call it genocide, they're out of this allowed territory, and that's it. Like, the moment you say it, and I talked about it, and then I got some positive, like I think I got some positive comments from people who are like with us on this, but I got also negative, and I started to get into discussions, and it was hard, and it was also sucking a lot of energy. It still does, and I'm kind of in a conflict in myself, because I have this part that want to be nice, that want to show respect, and a lot of people. I wrote that the moment that you speak about is you might lose friends, and actually a lot of people wrote to me, listen, I respect you, I love you, I respect your courage, but blah 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 blah, and then when people talk to me like this, I feel I have to give them back respect. And you had a lot to say about this issue, about doing this kind of discussion that you are kind of have. And when people tell me this, I always reply, yeah, I respect you as well, I love you as well, but and then I answer. And you said that all this kind of talk, there's something wrong about it. And I felt inside that there's something wrong about it. Like I wasn't quite okay with myself replying that way. I felt so. And then we had this discussion of, how do we talk about it? Should we talk about it? Should we have a discussion about this with people while there's an ongoing genocide? Is it moral and ethical to do it even? I'm not sure it's even an ethical thing to do, but then I think, but I'm trying to talk to them. I'm trying to wake them up. I'm trying to make them think. And a lot of the comments to me were like, we would listen to you if you weren't so condescending, if you weren't so preaching, if you were not so thinking some have moral superiority on us, if you want us to be open, so be open to our point of view as well. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to be open to someone who says it's okay.
And also, I think it's a lie. This is, I think, one of the main things that we want to talk about is all the manipulation that is happening here, and all the tricks that they use to make you play their game. And one of the tricks that they use, this is the first one that I want to deconstruct, is that they tell you, if you only did this, then we would listen. Yeah. But it's always a lie. It's always a lie. There's a famous joke in Israel. I don't know if it's known internationally, but the joke is that the tiger and the lion, they're bored. So they say, let's mess with the rabbit. Mm-hmm. And they call the rabbit and they say, why aren't you wearing a hat? And they beat the shit out of him. So next time he wears a hat, and then they're bored again, and they go to him and they go, why are you wearing a hat? And they beat the shit out of him. And I think that this is the attitude of Zionists and of fascists in general. They say, if only you did this, then we would listen. And then you do this, and they say, no, you need to do the opposite. Then we would listen to you. And then you do this, and then they say, no, you need to do a third thing, and then we would listen to you. But they never listen to you. It's always what you are doing is not the right thing for them to listen to you, because they don't want to listen to you.
But don't you think, like, I want to raise the question, because I think when people, that's how human psychology work. Yeah. If you come to somebody and he gets the feeling of you're judging him, you're telling him you're a bad person, they don't want to listen. And I'm not sure, like, I read all the comments and I thought, do I need to change how I talk in order to try to make them listen? And I always torn, but on the other hand, like, my discomfort is like, what are we discussing here? Like, we're discussing while there's an ongoing mass killing campaign that is going for over a year, if it's okay, am I not participating with legitimizing the murder when I'm even having discussion about it? Like, the concept of having discussion. So but on the other, like, this is where I'm stuck. But on the other hand, why should I talk to them or not? Shouldn't I? Because I don't know, maybe if I would give person a feeling that I'm not saying you're a bad person, I'm not blaming you, I'm not, maybe he will open a bit, and then I would tell, look at the sources, read this, please, read this.
So Dan, you do this, right? You stay in a very matter of fact way, right? With your historical discussion, right? You don't really pass any moral judgment in you, or very little moral judgment, as little as possible. You just describe what is going on, right?
Yeah, I think, well, not always, but generally, yeah. Like, I think my strategy is to just say things that are measurable, that are factual, not to say what I think about it or how one might interpret it or something like that. Just to say this and this happened, and to speak with a clear and not euphemistic language as possible. And if you bring out the right facts, so how do I explain this? Like, it's an interesting thing. I've never thought about this consciously, but it's kind of Chomsky is my inspiration in this. Noam Chomsky. You just point at the right facts, and you've said something moral. You said something ethical. Now it's not there. You've said something moral and ethical, assuming that murdering someone is wrong. Okay, so I just say this is what happened.
Yes.
Or robbing someone is wrong. I said this is what happened. And when they make it into a conversation about rights, but it is our land. Okay, so maybe they say that it is our land. We were here first, thousands of years ago. I say maybe. Okay, so you murdered and you robbed in order to take control of your own land. That's your interpretation. I don't go into the conversation of metaphysics, of Let's just state to the facts what happened on the ground. Okay.
Yes.
So someone says it's our land. They're not really a people. I say, okay, that's your interpretation. And that's why you murdered them and robbed them. But you did murder and rob them. I keep bringing them back to that.
Yeah.
You did not do that. Okay, that's just, I bring you back to that fact. I don't go into the ethics, morals, just facts. And then I go here and I take the mirror over here and I keep it in front of them, the reflection, and then I try to take me there. Sometimes I get confused and I'm like, I tell myself, no, just go back to the simple thing. Just put it in front of them. I think that can be very powerful. And inspired by nonviolence communication and things like that, I used to have also a rule of I never talk about who they are, how I see them. They might call me names, I ignore that part. If there's any content in their words that says something about reality, and if it's not correct, I said, no, that's not true. And here's the sources. And I just keep putting them in front of them and not. Although recently I do find some value in also not just speaking facts, but also expressing the correct, I believe, moral response to a situation.
Yes.
To also let that voice out. I don't know if that's clear, but it's something that I'm experimenting with recently.
Yeah, that the correct moral, the correct emotional response to a lot of murder and violence around us is to be angry, is to be frustrated, is to be I don't know, disturbed emotionally. This leads me to another point that I want to talk about. That in some sense, the whole idea, the whole construct, the whole game of a discussion is something that I think is in the service of systems of oppression, control, and violence and supremacy. Why? Because then it creates situations, and this is one of the main subjects that we want to deconstruct here. It creates situations where those who are allowed to even have a discussion in the in-group, in the group that has the rights in this system of supremacy and oppression, they have civil discussions and polite discussions about the rights of others, about whether others should be oppressed and killed, and should they be allowed to live.
So if I can just put the frame on that, and you continue, just to be more clearly to kind of organize this. So let's talk now. I think this is what we're doing. Okay, there's the responses of Zionists who are really mean, and then we kind of go back and forth. But then there's the friendly, like okay, we disagree, but let's respect each other, and I appreciate who you are.
Someone wrote me, he admired my courage, something like this. And then he said, but I don't want, but you keep bringing up the non-Zionist agenda, and I'm not ready to be a minority in a Muslim country, and this is what you offer me, so don't wonder why I reject it. I cannot agree with your worldview, and don't complain and preach Israelis because you offer them something they would never accept, which is it's interesting to confront this argument.
But also, I think you are presenting him in a way that is too generous, because the next thing that he said after he said that he admires you is, you're taking the easy route. You're taking the easy route when you put yourself out of the discussion. Look how revealing this is. There is a lot of levels here, and I think to deconstruct this will take 5 hours. But maybe just start it.
By the way, just communicating with Zionists, it's fascinating in terms of psychology. It's so many layers and depths and ironies and hypocrisies. It's insane. It can make your head explode.
Yes, yes. But so the next thing that he said after "I admire you" is, I disrespect you for taking the easy route. But how can these things exist?
I respect your courage, but you took the easy route.
Yes. So this is the gaslighting, and then you read it and you're like, what? What is he saying? Is he saying this? Is he saying the opposite of this? And I think that this is part of the way that the Zionists gaslight you and make everything difficult for us. Because does he mean that he really admires you? I think on some level, maybe he could even convinced himself that he admires you. But I think that him saying that he admires you is not really honestly saying. He doesn't really feel admiration towards you, and then feels, okay, I need to tell Elik that I admire him because this is the truth, and I want to tell Elik the truth as a friend that I admire him.
I wrote him like, thanks for this compliment.
Yes.
And then I wrote a very long, and you said the only thing that was wrong about this post, that you said thanks for the compliment.
The only thing wrong in your response?
In my
thanked him.
Yeah, that I thanked him for that. And you should have not buy into this nice.
Yes, right? I think the only reason that he says that he admires you is to create a kind of context for the discussion, to create a context of, yes, we are both Jews, we are both Israelis, we are both educated people, we are both moral people, we are both good people, we both appreciate each other, and in this context that I appreciate you and you appreciate me, now we will have this civil discussion about whether we should kill 200,000 Palestinians and starve 2 million Palestinians in this context of mutual respect. And then he wants you to continue playing this game, to say, thank you for saying that you admire me. Thank you. I appreciate you too. And now we continue this discussion between dignified people, this dignified discussion between dignified people about whether we should do mass murder and mass starvation.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is the trick.
And it's hard for me, because for me it's a constant struggle, because I am a very personal person. Like, if someone is nice to me, it's really hard for me not to take this bait, and to reply with a nicety, I'm always like, can you say it, nicety even? I don't know.
Nicety.
You can say it?
Niceties, yes.
Niceties. I cannot, and then I think I said nice. I've been nice to him, and I feel I've been nice to him on the expense of the 2 million who are being genocided. Yes. Now that's how I feel because if they were here and they were listening to this conversation, they wouldn't want me to be nice to him, right? So that's the situation, but I don't know how to handle it if I decided to speak in Hebrew and to address people from my own society. And And you know, when I have it with friends, I have it with family, I have it. Sometimes I think like maybe my only way is if I wouldn't live here, if I wouldn't interact with this society, because I don't know how to live in this tension. Like, if some that it's my, you know, it's my psychology, it's my inner makeup. I don't know how to work with this. It's a hard thing. That's
And you mentioned something before when we talked before the recording. You mentioned Norman Finkelstein.
yeah,
Is that how you say
maybe.
the name?
Finkelstein.
Finkelstein.
Yeah.
It's Finkelstein probably originally, but Finkelstein. Okay, so he mentioned once watching with his mother when he was young this debate show on TV while the American war in Vietnam was going on, and a conservative and probably a liberal, one is against the war at that point, one is for the war still, because no one was against the war when it started. People forget. Only when it got a bit too expensive, the liberals started opposing the war.
Like the
Sounds
current
familiar.
situation here.
Now,
Very similar.
by the way, now a year after, now suddenly people from the Zionist left start opposing, and they say what happens that you would see, like, you know, a lot of stuff in there.
And they start blaming the messianic settlers for what happened here, even though they took active
We
part in it
massacred
until now.
enough. Now,
Yes.
now we can stop.
Yes.
Okay.
So, so they see this debate about the war. One is against the war, one is for the war, and at the end, they get up and they shake each other's hands. And Norman Finkelstein says, "My mother looks at that and she says, what is this? How could this is life and death of hundreds of thousands and ultimately millions of human beings that they're debating, and they're shaking their hands?
Yeah.
Is this genuine, or is this a kind of game?" And I think it's a very interesting point that the mother brought up, and that you are bringing up right now, that there's something so elusive or misleading or tempting about it. Like, isn't that beautiful? We don't agree, but we always remember that fundamentally, okay, I accept you, you accept me, something like that. And then you say something. There's something fucked up about that.
Yes.
And I heard you. I wasn't part of the conversation at this earlier point, and I was kind of listening. I was like, something like clicked for me, because I have one of the Zionist kind of repetitive responders to my posts. It's not usual. Usually they're very violent, very hateful, and then every now and then you would find someone who's like, "Hey, my brother," you know, like, "Hey, listen." Like I don't remember what he's saying, but like to give you the vibe, like, "Hey, I don't agree with what you say. I'm sure that you mean well. I think you're just confused. I wish that you would understand this point," like talking like that, like, "Hey, my brother, like we can still talk about these things." And then, you know, basically giving me his Mein Kampf about Muslims and Palestinians. and there's something very misleading about it. It was like, "Oh, good, like this is what I'm here for.
Yes.
I'm here to change people's minds. And here's someone that he doesn't agree with me, but at least we can talk. And so maybe I'll bring up enough facts and I'll show him," and we go back and forth, and it's for a long time now.
And it doesn't bring any change in here.
But it's not even that. Even before, does it change or not change? Because I don't know if anything changes. But even before that, I felt kind of dirty, like something's wrong, like something's kind of creepy even. And I realized there's this ethos of sometimes more so. It's actually an ethos of the right-wing Zionism. It's very weird and contradictory. They don't always do this, but they have this ethos sometimes of, at the end of the day, Jews are Jews, left or right. They even say it's the left, the Zionist left, who they love the Arabs, but they hate us. They have everything mixed up. But we accept them. They prosecute us. It's this whole thing. I'm not going to go into the history. And the idea is, we're going to smile at you. We're going to say, "Hey, my brother. Hey, my sister." We're going to, no matter what the disagreements, we're going to talk. But at the end of the day, why? Because you're a Jew. And that's why I felt, like I'm accepting this kind of, I think what you were describing. When I accept this
the premise.
the quality of the voice
Yes.
as we talk with each other, and I respond with the same. I reflect the same quality of the voice. I accept this premise. I didn't realize it. Of he's putting his arm around me. He's, hey brother, listen, let's talk. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's talk. It's like, get your fucking hand off me. It's bloody.
Yes.
I don't want this blood on me. And then the question is, what do you do, right?
Yeah,
How do
that's
you
the
respond?
what do you do? What do you do? That's my question. Because if I tell you, because I feel I'm inside of a kind of catch-22. Because if I respond nicely, so I'm participating in something I don't want to participate with. I don't want to have a discussion between
A civil discussion about
civil-
Auschwitz.
I don't want to
Yes.
have a civil discussion about mass murder. I also don't want to have a civil discussion whether should we, the master race, should give equal rights to the people that are not here and they're not part and they're never part of the discussion. It's always discussion between us, right?
And let me just say,
But
what
I cannot
happened-
step out of this
Yes.
this thing, and if I say I don't talk to you guys anyway, so why am I talking at all? Maybe I should, and it's something I'm willing to contemplate. Maybe I shouldn't try it in Hebrew.
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't try to talk to them. Maybe the only thing to do is join the struggle for outside pressure, and which we actually doing, right? But
Yes.
that's why we have the podcast in English. But something in me also don't feel completely okay with that. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm trapped in a way.
So I just want to add one detail to this thing. This guy who spoke very nicely to Elik and said, "I admire you," and then Elik wrote something that I think was very. It was both personal and highly political and honest and broad and important. I thought you spoke amazingly,
You write beautifully.
beautifully, really. And now
To
I'm
you,
saying
I can
this-
say thank you.
yeah, no,
Thank you for the
genuinely,
compliment.
Hey, my
genuinely.
brother, I really admire your writing.
And he didn't listen at all. He said, so he responded to you, if there was an initiative of something that I could join where there really is an opportunity for a democratic state for all, I would be there with all my might and wholeheartedly. And then I wrote to him, there is such a thing. It's called the ODSI, the One Democratic State Initiative, and I linked to the website of the One Democratic State Initiative, which we are starting to cooperate with and to talk with people there, a lot of Palestinians there. And I linked to this website, and he immediately responded with, I don't want this because then I would live in a country with a Muslim majority and I would be a minority. So thank you, but no thank you. And that's it. That's end of discussion. End of
So
discussion.
it means he is not open to any discussion
Yes.
to it whatsoever.
Zero openness to discussion. This entire openness to discussion is completely and entirely fake. It's just a show that he is putting on to keep the image for himself and for his surroundings that want to be liberal, enlightened people. It's a show that he is keeping to think that he is a good person and for others to think that he is a good person while continuing to be the master race and to control the area at the expense of millions of people.
And I want to stress the point that you said before, Alon, before this recording. This doesn't reflect the situation that we're in. It makes us forget the situation that we're in. It's as if, let's sit and talk about, will a communist society be good or an anarchist society, and kind of try to imagine futures. And that's not the situation. The situation is, okay, one democratic state, two states. The situation is, right now, there's millions of human beings that you are holding hostage. Your words, Alon, I think very powerful. You're holding them hostage. And you're saying, I'm not going to give them a vote. I'm going to keep them oppressed because I don't want to be. That's what you're saying. This isn't something like.
Yeah, we're not
And to
building a
respond-
society from zero.
And to say to that, to say to someone who says that, no, I'm gonna hold these millions of people hostage because I don't want to live in the. Who cares what you want?
Yes.
Do you think they want to live with you? Do you think they invited you here? They wanted you here? You came one day and you showed up.
Yeah.
They're willing to live with you a lot more than you are willing to live with them.
Which is amazing. I cannot understand this. I cannot understand this. How so many Palestinians, after they have suffered so much oppression and so much extreme violence, unimaginable violence at the hand of Zionists, how they still are willing to live with the Jewish people in their life. This is amazing to me. Amazing.
And even if this person is Zionist left, even if this person is at this point against of the war, if you say this, I'm going to keep holding them hostage.
Yes.
You say October 7th and all that follows, because that's what it means. To oppress people, it means there's going to be this. You're going to have to kill them as well, because they're not going to accept this.
But I suspect
so
that
just,
maybe. So you want to
just the last sentence, like so. I think Alon is really good at bringing us back to what's really going on and to respond appropriately morally, not just intellectually. So the situation is this person is holding a gun to Palestinians, holding them hostage. You're not going to have the vote. Why? Because I have very good reasons, whatever. But that's what you're doing. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not. And then I'm talking to you, Alon, with a gun to this guy's head. Listen, I admire you.
A little bit of drama here.
Yeah, I admire you. I respect you. But listen, I don't know about letting this guy go,
Let's do it. And then you reply, thank you for admiring me.
Thank you for your admiration.
Yeah.
I admire you too. But I care about everyone. So maybe don't shoot Elik in the head. Yeah. I kind of like Elik, so maybe don't shoot him in the head.
Well, listen, I respect you very much. And I hear what you're saying. Really, I thought about it. And a part of me is like, yes. But, did you consider that? And we go on and go on. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is the appropriate moral response? What's the appropriate tone of voice? And they make us forget. It's so easy to forget. We get normalized because we live in this society. It's so difficult.
And it's always bring us back. So what discussion should we make? Should
so
we
I
make
wanted to
any
ask
discussion?
you. I asked you in the discussion that we had before when we weren't live. I asked you, can you start your reply to this guy? Can I say his name? I don't know. This guy, whatever, he doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. I hate him. I hate you. I hate you. You know who you are. I hate you. I hate you. You're fake. You're disgusting. You're a racist. You're a Nazi. I hate you. Elik might say that he still likes you, but I hate you on a personal level. On a personal level, I hate you. You're a murderer, and you're a racist, and you're a Nazi. I hate you. If you're watching this, I hate you. You're fake. I hate you more than all the other commenters. All the other commenters, you're the worst of them. The worst of them. Because you wrap your shit with sugar. You take the shit, the biggest shit that anyone could ever drop, and you wrap it up in sugar, and you try to shove it down our throats. This is what you're trying to do. And I hate you. Can you, Elik?
I know that if I wasn't here, you would also say his name, but never mind. That's
okay. Can you, Elik? Yeah. Can you, Elik? Because I want to name names. I want to name names. These are criminals. These are criminals. These are people who should be remembered in history as the worst kind of people. Anyway, Elik, do you think that you are able to start your reply to these kinds of people? Let's take this guy as an example. Do you think that you can start your reply to him with something honest? Not with something like, thank you for saying that you admire me, but with something honest that would not make you feel this cringe inside, that you are being dishonest, that you are being fake, that you are playing along with the game, and then say the exact same things that you said, but with that vibe, with the vibe of true honesty, not honesty wrapped up in the fake game.
I can say I don't take your compliments, or I don't care about your compliments.
Maybe
or I can say I don't feel comfortable playing this game of giving compliments on the expense of people who are now being slaughtered. I respect more the people who I don't know. I respect them more. I don't know if I respect them more. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's hard, because you say it's only cultural norms, but I think it's also human psychology. We want to have harmony. We want to have peace. Like I feel in a way you kind of demand some kind of. I understand it. I'm just thinking about. I have to be honest about who I am, and I.
But hating him, is that not human as well?
It
This
is,
hate
yeah,
that
man, but
I
it's
have
you.
for
It's
the
you.
hate
It's
that
not
I have
me.
for fakeness, you hate the fakeness too.
I
Because
hate
when
the
you play
fakeness
with the
too.
fakeness,
I feel
when you
it.
play this game of fakeness,
I
you feel
like-
bad inside.
I feel bad inside.
Do you
It's
know
true.
what I think is difficult in that moment of
Mhm.
not responding in the same voice?
Uh-huh.
Of like they're playing the game of we are. There's even a concept in Jewish and really Zionist culture, ahavat chinam.
Yeah.
Okay, so to
No
love,
matter what, we
unconditional
love each other.
love, unconditional love.
love. Yeah.
And the most right-wing, racist, genocidal, Mein Kampf kind of Zionists are the most ahavat chinam to Jews, of course. That's the
Right.
idea.
Only to Jews.
Only to Jews. Between us, it's our
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
So they come to you with that voice of, hey, my brother, we disagree, but and if I were to say, it's not my style, and Alon doesn't tell us to say that, but your response is fuck you, I hate you.
Yes.
It's as if they win the love game. Oh, they are the people of love, and we are the people of hate.
Yeah, and they always want to paint us as
As the people
hateful
of hate.
right?
That's the paradox.
And then we always have to prove that we are not the people of hate. But so we need to
That's the
accept.
difficulty.
I think we need to accept that we cannot win this game of their accepting us.
But I think there might
not,
be an interesting way of breaking the cycle.
How would you? Okay, let's say you need to respond to this. Someone write to you, for example.
I don't know what to say, but I think what I want to communicate is, first of all, take your hand off of me.
Yeah.
Because you're only putting this hand on me. I want to be aware of what the situation is, right? This situation. I want to have that in my mind. And I want to respond accordingly. I don't know what the response would be, but something like, maybe I'm saying, look, I'm not having a polite discussion about whether or not it's okay to mass murder people. To just say those words doesn't mean that I'm not going to respond to them, that we're not going to have some kind of a exchange. But just, I'm not buying it. First of all, I'm not buying into this. I respect you. I'm not shaking your hand. Maybe. I don't know what the response is.
So I think I have a trick. Okay. So they use a lot of what?
No, I thought maybe after, if we can take some comments and or never. I don't.
There's so many of them that I don't know if we will have time, and this is a very intense discussion. So
okay,
after maybe.
Yeah.
So they use a lot of tricks. I have one trick up my sleeve that I learned, and I learned it in the context of trying to defend non-human animals that are part of the biggest Holocaust in the history of everything, from the people who are murdering them and eating their burned corpses every single day. So one of the methods that such systems of supremacy and oppression use, and maybe the main method that they use, is to take the victim and to so Dan just went to the bathroom, I think. Dan is hearing what we're saying.
Yeah.
So one of the main mechanisms that they use is to take the victims of the oppression, of the violence, of the supremacy, take the group that is not protected, and to completely disappear them from the discussion, from the physical space, and also from the mental space, and also from the discussion.
Yeah.
So I think it's called the absent referent. There's like a professional discussion about these things, and this is when they take the victim and they just, so first of all, they kick them out of the space. So for example, what is the first thing that the Zionists did? They took as many Palestinians as they could and they drove them out of the physical space, and they left only Jews in the physical space, and the Palestinians that were left in the physical space were given Israeli citizenship so that they will cooperate with the Zionist regime. So they did all the tricks so that the actual victims of this oppression would not be part of the space. And then they deleted them from the history books, and then they started deleting them from the minds of people, and they delete and they delete and they delete. And they want the victims of the oppression to not be present in any way, shape, or form in what is going on. So I think one of the main tricks that we have is to keep bringing the victims back to the discussion.
To make them present.
To make them present as much as we can.
Yeah.
As much as we can. So this is difficult. This is difficult because we are fighting against forces that are very, very powerful, that have been working for decades and centuries to delete those victims and to not allow them to speak their voice. And sometimes they are just not present. When you write in Hebrew, Elik, in your Facebook profile, when you write in Hebrew in your Facebook profile, there are very few Palestinians, if any, there. And the few Palestinians that are there, sometimes they are more on the side of the Zionist regime than anyone else, because they have been conditioned they've been given material advantages for being on the side of the Zionists, and they don't want to give that up. So I think the main weapon that we can use is to bring the victims into the discussion back, to always say, okay, how would this look? How would what you are saying look to a Palestinian who lost their entire family, who is living in a tent now, who is suffering from hunger, who is suffering from thirst, whose entire family was wiped out, etc., etc., etc. And we should not give this up for one moment. We should always bring the victim back into the discussion.
As a subject, as a fellow subject, and not just as an object that we, the subjects, are discussing their fate.
Yeah, but it's interesting, like I'm thinking, but what we're saying here is that actually the discussion itself become a tool of the oppression, right?
Yes.
The existence of the discussion, right? I learned since I'm very young that discussion is the best thing, that people who disagree with each other, who are able to talk is the most beautiful thing that can be, that we need to learn to talk, we need to listen. And I think it's very important on a personal level, right? With friends and everything. But here in that situation, the very existence of discussion is, in a way, one of the biggest tools even to make and you may argue that it doesn't even matter that what I wrote in that post were nice and I liked what I write too. The moment I said thank you for the compliment, it's all trash.
Yes,
it doesn't matter because I played the game.
Yes.
And we need to be aware of, and I think it's something I understand now. It's a very, we need to remember we're not in a discussion, we're in a battlefield. Like, it's a battlefield, it's people, life and death. And the more, and it's for me,
this is just factually true that Palestine is a battlefield at this moment.
Yeah,
and this is just true.
Yeah, and you need to decide, do you want to join the battlefield or you don't, because you are too much like me, soft-hearted, then you cannot resist manipulation, you cannot be not nice to your friends. For me, to be not nice to a person who used to be my friend demands a tremendous work, and I cannot hide it. It's hard. I know I need to do a work on that, but because they all write me, I read the comments and they always like, if you would be more nice, if you would be less judgeful. And for me, I think it's either to avoid the discussion, just ignore, or to tell them, I'm not having a discussion with you, whether it's okay to kill people or not. Just not willing.
That could be a good response.
I'm not willing to have this. Sorry, guys, I will discuss other things. This subject is not for discussion, because if I'm willing to have the discussion, I'm already on the side of the oppressor, and it doesn't matter what I say. Like, this is kind of, I think maybe that's the principled position, which is, and what it takes me also to the, now there was this thing with the Haaretz paper, You know that it's. He said
The publisher, Amos
the
Shoken.
publisher said something that he understood. I don't know. What do you remember? What he said?
He. So this is the owner, I think, of the Haaretz newspaper, a liberal, left liberal newspaper in Israel. The only Israel that wasn't, that kind of withheld the fascist wave since the 7th of October and was able to write, along some other shit, important stuff. And the owner of this newspaper was part of an international something about media, about journalism. And he said there, I didn't check this. This is very superficial. Maybe the reports are wrong, but the reports in the Israeli media are that he said that he called for other countries or organizations to boycott Israel, I believe, in order to make this quote unquote war end. And people are saying, I didn't check this, that he called, that he talked about the Israeli military or Israel fighting against Palestinian freedom fighters. I didn't check all of this, but this is what people are saying about what Shoken said, the owner of Haaretz.
Yeah, and then it brought a risk that this paper would close, and then people from within the paper wrote an article how they condemn Amos Shoken. Like most of the writers in Haaretz wrote.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then it's like, again, beautiful paper, democracy. He lets the people, and I'm sure he asked them to do it, or something.
So why did you mention
that? I thought maybe it's good that this paper will be closed to finish this facade of discussion, society. That I'm tired of this, Like that's what I thought. I don't know.
I think this is very revealing in a different way that we also discussed before, and I want to raise it again. So I said to you guys, because I have a lot of experience with this shit, that I know that all this facade goes immediately to the trash whenever you step out of the range of acceptable discussion. Okay? So this is part of the game, that there is like this window of acceptable things to say inside the cult. And I will say this, cult. It's just a cult. Everything that we are saying now is just, I think, analyzing how cults work. And this cult has happens to have millions of people in it. So it's a big cult, but I think the structure is still of a cult and the mechanisms are still the mechanisms of a cult. So I think this is how it works. So you have the window of things that are allowed to say. And as long as you are within this window, then you will be respected. People will be polite to you. People will have the discussion with you. Mm-hmm. But the moment that you say something that is outside this window of things that are allowed to say, the moment you say something that, like calling Hamas terrorists, calling them freedom fighters, which I think is closer to the truth. But immediately when I said this, I felt the fear in my chest. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why? Because I know, not even, yes, jail and so forth and so on, but not even that. Just I know immediately that all the Zionists watching this, if any, are still watching this right now. Once I said this, they will brand me a lunatic, someone who you cannot have a discussion with. This guy, maybe with Dan I can have a discussion, maybe with Elik I can have a discussion, but with Alon, he called them freedom fighters. He said that this describes them. No, I cannot have a discussion with him. He is crazy. He is outside of society. He went to the other side, and now I'm outside of society, and you cannot speak to me.
Yeah, that's even worse than the genocide.
It's worse than genocide. Yeah, it's interesting that you can say genocide, but you cannot say like Hamas. Or
you can't say genocide. But people, that would
yes, there are levels to this.
There's
of course,
levels, yeah.
Of course, it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah. I even feel the need to kind of clarify. We're not saying that Hamas. Should I?
I will clarify. Yeah. I am saying that.
Go ahead.
I am saying.
Let's make this discussion.
I am saying that Hamas are freedom fighters. Why? Because the Palestinian people is not free. The Palestinian people is under the oppression of the Zionist regime. There is a system of supremacy and of oppression in Palestine between the river and the sea. Between the river and the sea, there are 15 million people living. Some of them are more free, and some of them are less free. And the Palestinians, the few millions, so there are 7 million of them, and there is also a ranking between them. But the people of Gaza, the 2.3 million people of Gaza, now closer to 2.1 million, I wonder why. The 2.1 million people of Gaza are not free. They are not free. They are in a ghetto. They are in a concentration camp. They are in an open air prison. They do not have rights. They do not have freedom, any freedom. And then some people out of this group of 2.1 million people are fighting. What are they fighting for? They are fighting to change the situation in which they are not free. So by the very logical definition of words, they are freedom fighters. They are fighting with force, with violence. They are fighting with force and violence for the goal of getting freedom for them and for their people. That makes them freedom fighters. Now arrest me. Now call me crazy for being logical. Now call me crazy for using words as they are intended to be used.
Yeah.
Can I play the other part?
Yeah.
Okay. The devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Advocate. But they massacre people.
Yes, this is part of their fight for freedom.
And that would be my response. How do you think freedom, struggles for freedom in history usually go? How do you think slave revolts in history usually go? This is not to justify it. I'm not playing that game. Is it good? Is it not good? I think it's horrible. Okay. When the 7th of October, I live in Israel. I grew up in Zionist society. When the 7th of October began, during that week, and I went to the news and I realized something's going on, and I saw the numbers of casualties go up and up and up and up, I was horrified. None of us were happy. Can I say that? Is that true? Okay. We weren't like, oh, good, freedom.
I will not respond.
All right. I was horrified, and I wanted the killing and the violence to stop.
Yeah.
I'm not saying so. My position on this would be, when the slaves revolt and they go through the master's mansion and they kill every man, woman, and child, which has happened in history, which maybe usually happens in history, I don't look at that and I say, wonderful, okay, I want this to stop. But I'm not rooting for the slave masters either. The answer is still to end slavery. And it is still the result of slavery, not. Yeah, I'm kind of losing.
No, but you're saying, I think, in a way, when I look in holistic way, there's a system of like colonization, oppression. You can call it in many ways, ghettoization, putting people in closed reserves and controlling them. And it has many victims. Most of the victims are these people. Part of the victims are the people who are dying because of the resistance to that. To me, they're all victims of the same systems. And the people who died are but then, like, it means, like, the problem is it's also a discussion we had. Can I talk about it?
Yes, sure.
We had discussion on the phone because, I have someone who always write to me, who sometimes watch our podcast, and then he wants, every time I write post in the Facebook against the genocide, he finds the parts in our podcast that are the most sensitive one.
Yes.
And he wrote to me, I understood from your podcast that you look at the 7th of October as a legitimate resistance. He
I don't know about legitimate, but it is resistance.
He said it to me, and I felt that if I am not kind of condemning the killing of civilians and stuff, I have no way that I can have any discussion with Israeli society. And I told him, yeah, I will always condemn the killing of civilians. And And for me, it's a sensitive point, because I always condemn the killing of civilians, but I also see the occupation as more responsible. And but then he will say, and it's not so far-fetched. Like, for example, Nurit Peled, whose daughter died in a terrorist attack, she said, I don't condemn the people who killed my daughter, I condemn the occupation. She said it about her own daughter, so I feel but what can I say? Like, I feel like, because if I say that, they will say, okay, so just like you are condemning the occupation for the killing of Israeli civilians, we condemn Hamas, right? They make this for the killing
This
of
fake symmetry.
Yeah, they create this fake symmetry, and we have
Hold
to.
on, just you didn't say
Okay.
the full sentence. They say, okay, just like you say, oh, the Jewish victims of 7th of October are actually the victims of Israeli occupation. Well, we say that the Palestinian victims in Gaza that we are killing, that Israel is murdering,
Yeah,
they are actually the victims of Hamas, not of us, because Hamas made us do it.
yeah. And
But I think examining material reality is a thing that we should do here, right?
What do you mean?
Just who has the power?
Yeah.
Who has the power in this situation? They always tell us that the question who has the power is not an important question. And you know why they tell us this is not an important
In
question?
all of
Because
history, all of the people of power said power doesn't matter, money doesn't matter,
Yes.
control of resources isn't the most important thing. Let's just talk, you guys. Who
Yeah,
cares how much
yeah.
money I have in my life?
yeah.
That's they never want to talk about power if they're holding power.
yes. So I had some thoughts about that, Elik, about this discussion that we had. So I think the most important thought that I had is this meta thought. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's very much related to why I think having discussions with Zionists is a bad idea and not very productive. And the thing is that when you are supposed to, when you are having a supposed discussion with Zionists, they are always doing the following thing. They are trying to catch you. Catch you for stepping out of the line, for saying something that is unacceptable. By which standards? By the standards of Zionism, of the Zionist regime, which were created especially to continue this system of oppression and supremacy. Especially the standards were created to continue this.
Yeah.
And they are policing the way that you speak.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is why they like raising these sensitive points. Why?
Yeah.
Because when you are being persecuted, when you are being threatened,
you don't suggest that you say that the 7th of October was justified.
Yes. So they not only threaten you with being called crazy, with being banished from civil society, being cursed and humiliated and condescended and so forth, and ridiculed and so forth and so on. They also threaten you with like this implicit threat of arrest, of violence against you, of all kinds of things.
Scary.
Yes, and you get scared. And when you are afraid, you cannot have a true discussion. And this is why they want to go to the most sensitive points in this, because these points are very complicated and nuanced, and they require a discussion that is complicated and nuanced. And you cannot have a complicated and nuanced discussion when you are afraid of being persecuted.
Yeah, because it is a nuanced conversation, to me, like this point about, because like Dan said, I don't want anyone to be killed. I don't want to say that it's okay to kill civilians, but I also I feel that as an Israeli, how can I condemn the Palestinians who are in this fucking ghetto? Who am I to condemn them? I feel like, maybe this, when we have this cringe, it's a good sign. When I told you I was writing to him and I told him thank you for the compliment, I felt this cringe.
Yes.
And I also feel this cringe when I have to judge people. Like, the honest question is, I don't know. I don't want to judge them. I'm not in the position I didn't born to a jail. I didn't free them before. I didn't do anything to free them, honestly. I wasn't active enough. I wasn't part of the struggle. So who am I to criticize them? That's like part of my honest feeling. Like, I feel, of course, I don't, like, you know, if I was there in this kibbutzim and this violence was directed to me, like, of course I want people to be protected, but I have...
It's another one of those tricks where the framing is the problem, not what answer you. Just the fact that the question is, do you condemn Hamas? I'm not doing that discussion. Don't put me in that. That's not my job. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Like, they framed that already. Like, it's not my job as a member of an oppressing society to evaluate the system, the methods of resistance of my victims. It doesn't mean that I justify or that I don't justify. It's just the fact that resistance exists, and my job is to stop the oppression of my society.
Yes. I have another thought in that vein.
Now, if they want to go after us, come on, we gave them.
I don't fucking care.
We keep checking the.
Here is my true, one of my deepest and most fundamental moral positions.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a system of supremacy and oppression, I want to dismantle this system of supremacy and oppression. Now, when you see a system of supremacy and oppression, you have only two choices. One, to go against this system of supremacy and oppression, and the other is to work with this system of supremacy and oppression. There is no third possibility, because ignoring the system of supremacy and oppression is going with the system of supremacy and oppression. Both siding is going with the system of supremacy and oppression, because these are the tools that systems of supremacy and oppression use to continue to justify themselves and to perpetuate themselves. So, here is my question to all those people who are judging us. Are you for and or against the system of supremacy and oppression called Zionism? If you are for this system of supremacy and oppression, then you are part of the problem. If you are against this system of supremacy and oppression, then please join us. And why are you speaking against us? I am against this system of supremacy and oppression. I want to dismantle it. Why are you arguing with me if you are on the side of dismantling it? And I want to tell you that this system of supremacy and oppression is putting us in a situation. This is why I'm against it. Because such systems put us in situations that are impossible morally. Just they raise moral questions that are impossible to answer. They make me choose between one person and another person who lives and who dies. And I don't want to choose between two people who lives and who dies. But I want to tell you one more thing. If you are for the system of supremacy and oppression that is making me choose who lives and who dies, then I will definitely not choose you. I will definitely not choose you over anyone else.
Interesting. But it takes me also to this, in all this Piers Morgan show, he always tried to
Do
make
you
it,
condemn Hamas?
and he makes it a yes or no questions, always.
Yeah.
And then people say, I don't want to participate, because they know it's not a yes or no question. They know that when you have the question of freedom fighters fighting, or anyway, people resisting, we call them whatever they are. Even people resisting oppression, it's always just like the slave revolts, as you mentioned. It's never a simple answer. But they always make it a yes and no question, and that's why. But then again, it's like, I guess people who go into Piers Morgan, should they go to Piers Morgan or not? I think they shouldn't, in a way. But then they say, but we want to bring this voice to a large audience. Should I make a discussion in my Facebook with people with Zionists or not? Should I answer them at all? And if I do, how? I don't know if we answered it. We're talking over an hour. I think maybe, like you guys, what do you say? Maybe you want to give some conclusions and then we wrap it up, or how do you feel about it?
I feel like, first of all, this is an ongoing discussion. That
Yeah.
we will not. It's not a question with an answer. It's not a problem with a solution.
Yeah.
I do think that it's good that we did this thing where we talked with Zionists, because look, like you said, Dan, this is a way to investigate their psychology and to analyze their psychology and to understand more what is going on here and how this system of Zionism, how this cult of Zionism is using these people to achieve its goals. And I think it's very important to understand what is going on here. And one of the results of what happened is that we are talking now and we are telling the world what we experienced. And I think that this is also positive. I don't know what else.
Yeah.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm taking away from this, I'm just repeating things said earlier, but I think that's the most important thing, to not accept the premise, to not accept the framing. Whether you respond or not respond, make sure it's your framing. Make sure you stay connected to what's really going on, and make the Palestinians present as fellow subjects, even if they're not there too.
And how do you make them as fellow subjects if they're not there? It's also a question, because they're still not there, you know? And this is part of what's annoying so much, that, you know, every time I write, they're not there. And then I also feel alone. It's funny, you know, I'm alone as an anti-Zionist, but I am also and then I feel it's either I feel like always I have this choice and I fall for it again and again, that it's either I'm alone and I have to be aggressive and to push people up, or I actually, like Alon said, you always have this choice between being with the system or against it, and you don't have a middle ground. And I try to choose the middle ground. I'm ending with the oppressor by saying,
this is always what happens.
By saying to them, thank you for the compliments and blah, blah, blah.
You're forgetting what's happening.
Yeah.
I forget the Palestinians as subjects all the time. It's the easiest thing. It's the normal thing. And especially when they make that framing. And I think making them present is even to imagine them there. And then how will I respond if they were here with me looking at this? Yeah. How would I respond? Not how even they would respond. How would I respond if they're looking at me, looking at this right now? I remember I was a Zionist most of my life. I was in the Israeli military. I was an officer. And during the officer course, they took us to Jerusalem, to Har HaZeitim, and we were there kind of having discussions, and suddenly we had this ideological discussion, all the cadets, and the Palestinian workers in this hotel where we're at, they're Palestinians. The workers are Palestinians. And I noticed these two Palestinian young men, workers, kind of dressed in the uniforms, and they're kind of in the background. We're just ignoring them. And people started talking about Palestinians and rights and not rights. And I was a Zionist. I was a right-wing Zionist. And I noticed in the corner of my eye, I look at them and I see one of them just furious.
Yes.
And the other guy kind of holding him back.
Yes.
Just furious. They're talking about us. We're not even here.
Yes.
They're saying things about us. I'm listening to this. It's as if I don't exist. They're discussing whether I should have this or not, this right or that right. I'm right here. And I was a Zionist. I was a right-wing Zionist. And I was like, shit, I understand him. Holy shit, this is really, like, I really felt for him. And that image was really burnt in my consciousness. And just this experience of not having a voice, like he didn't have a voice in that moment. He was just not a subject. So, and I did see him as a subject. I did notice, even while
I think this is exactly the seed of what allowed you to step out of this cult of Zionism eventually. I think this is exactly the kind of moment that you can like hold on to you know.
Certainly, in hindsight, it's something that took a lot of meaning, and to make them present is to put that person back in the room, to feel his pain, and he can't talk right now. That's just the reality. I'm privileged. I can talk,
If I was a Palestinian, I wouldn't want to talk with someone who justify my killing. Why would I want to talk to a person?
Yes.
So maybe that's the response, yeah?
Yeah.
But just as you respond, have the right energy, remember what's going on, make them present. Don't fall into the we are the privileged subjects talking about the objects, right? To subjectify, not objectify. Everything.
Yes. You made the point that like why do we need to talk? Because we are part of this society. We were born into this society that is speaking Hebrew, that has Israeli citizenship, that has this privileged position. So, in some sense, this says that we have to talk to these people, because if not us, then who?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So this is the strongest argument that I heard to why we should speak with
Yeah, and
Zionists.
even Muhammad from the ODS, he asked that, why don't you speak in Hebrew? Why do you make your podcast in...
Maybe now it's more clear why we don't speak in Hebrew so much.
But
because
he asked us, and he's
yeah.
like, it's a Palestinian friend that lives in Gaza right now, and he
Yes.
listened to our podcast, and he asked, why is it in English? You know,
Yes.
because he
Yes.
want to try to change the minds of the Israelis. So it's not such a clear answer.
Yes, in some sense, it is our mission to try to change the minds of Zionists, but I think it's complex. It's not straightforward, because being born into this society, you are also controlled mentally and emotionally by this cult. So we also need to do our own personal process so that we can, in fact, speak with these people in an effective way. I know that 1 year ago I couldn't speak with these people in an effective way, and today I feel like I have some possibility of speaking in an effective way, and the reason is that I continued this process of deconstructing the manipulation of the cult in my own mind and my own heart, you know, and we need to continue this always to try to speak with them, to probably fail, and then to go back and see what happened and why we failed, and then try again, and then go back and then try again, and then go back and then try again. And I don't think this process is a simple one or a short one. I think it will be very difficult and painful, but in some sense it is like our raison d'être by being who we are, you know.
Yeah.
Any last words for Zionists who might be watching this? You have some Zionists who are hate watching your podcasts.
Yes.
They're waiting to report you to the police, and you gave them a lot of material tonight.
We gave them material tonight. What can we do? Speak our truth.
Listen, brother. Yeah. I really love you.
I love you, but yeah.
I have one thought that I need to express. All throughout my life, all I wanted from all those people who are part of oppressive systems, who are benefiting from oppressive systems at the expense of victims who do not have the same rights as them, any of those oppressive systems, is that for one moment we have a rational, actual, honest discussion, a true conversation with vulnerability, with honesty, with openness. All these discussions that you are having, they are not that. They never were that. And all that I ask is for you to really, really, really shed all these defenses, not have any assumptions, not have any rules, not police the way that I speak, and actually tell me what you actually feel, and actually listen when I tell you what I think and what I feel. This is all that I ever wanted, and I must say that I rarely, if ever, got it. So please, this is all I want. This is all I ever wanted, because I feel that if we do this, then we can go beyond all the fears, that we can go beyond all the obstacles, and that we can become better people, and that we can make our society and our world a better place.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I don't know. I just want to say that there's no final answer, and it's a process, and each one of us need to do his inner work. Like you need to do the work of like not getting too angry. I need to do the work of not being too nice and manipulated by sweet talk. Everyone has his own thing, and we're trying, and sometimes we're failing. Sometimes I feel like shit, like I failed the Palestinians or I failed the people who are, but at least we're trying, and we're trying to keep the conversation going. So I don't know.
That's a good last sentence. Like we're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying. We hope we're doing well. We'll try to do better. We're just trying.
Okay, so let's say thank you to all the people who were with us for an hour and 20 minutes. So a lot of people on YouTube, I see over 100 people. On Elik's Instagram, I see almost 30 people. So thank you so much for listening to us, for participating in this discussion, even though in this live session, we couldn't really answer comments because it was a very intense thing between the three of us. Maybe next time we will answer comments and answer questions. Thank you, Dan, for being with us. Thank you, Elik.
Thank you, Alon.
Okay, so bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
And peace and justice for all.
Bye. Peace and justice for all.
Okay.
You can turn it off there also.
Yes, so here.
Bye-bye.